year, but I imagine we're already we're already in it. We're
Yeah.
already in it. It's 1 year. It's 1 year.
Yeah, I think looking back on the year, there's just been like so many conversations that I've sat in the background on and listened to afterwards, and just thinking about like all the different ways it related to me and all the different ways that like a lot of things that I feel like right on the tip of my tongue that I'm ready to just like offload on onto this conversation, you know? It's just like, oh, yeah.
I mean, I think
Like,
it's I'm trying to think. I'm on a team, right? So I'm trying to think who else have I ever spoken to as much as I've talked to you this year. I don't think there's any individual person because we've been on the phone, we've been on a call for every week,
mhm.
maybe yeah, almost if not more than one time a week, but every week for like yeah. I mean that's pretty interesting. I was trying to think about that
Yeah, yeah.
because
Yeah, because I know that
last August, I mean, it was
there are things that I hear you say and I hear other guests say, and I'm like, oh, I need to share. I need to take off my mask and share this with Ashanti, and like, but a lot of the, but now we actually like set aside the time to do that because so much of the time is spent talking about what needs to happen next, and what video product needs to come out next. And now it's like, yeah, all those times where like, like Mark Green said something, and I'm like, oh, I really, want to chime in on that and how I relate to that. And it's like now it's like, yeah,
yeah.
40 weeks later.
Man, how I mean, it went really fast. It really went fast. I mean, it feels like it's hard to believe it's already a year, and I think that you and I, when we talk about an episode, and I'm like, or that one part, right, or you will highlight something, I'm like, oh yeah, that was a good piece, right? Like I think having that dialogue, and I think even halfway in, I was like, we should get you on the episode. We should get you on the show. I think
Hmm.
I don't know when I thought of it. I mean, as in terms of like being something that was, I think really not only it was a good idea to do, but that I wanted to do was like, I think you have great insight, and you've heard 50 people talk about their probably even more, but just definitely in the structure rigid of this podcast, the people exploring their own masks, right? For whatever the reason that they had their mask, whether it was told to them, forced on them. Um, I think I've been looking forward to getting to know you as well. So, I mean, on a deeper level, like I mean, imagine that you can talk to somebody for a year
Hmm.
every week
Hmm.
about important stuff and still
Hmm.
not know much about them. Like you know way more about me than I know about you. So there's a different side of it, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm talking about myself all the time. But the other side, and because I'm a person, because I really care about people and I really like to get to know people. I think we've had like little conversations here and there, and you
Yeah.
told me a little bit about this and a little bit about high school and a little bit about this and a little bit about college. I've gotten little nuggets here and there,
Yeah.
but
It
I'm
takes,
glad that we get to go
it
into
takes
this
a lot.
conversation.
It definitely takes a lot for me to talk about myself. And I think we'll learn more about that as we keep talking.
Welcome to the Taking Off the Mask podcast. My name is Ashanti Branch, and I'm really glad you've joined us. You probably heard me say that about 50 times this season, and today is our 1 year anniversary. I mean, this is our 50th episode, but a year ago this podcast began, and I'm really excited that today's guest is Ryan Louie. Ryan has been our producer. He's been our videographer and our editor for the entire 1 year. When the podcast kicked off last summer during our Social Emotional Leadership Academy, the young men were testing out different things and how we were going to record, how we were going to film, like was it going to be live or not. We were in the middle of the pandemic. There was no way for us to bring people to any studio. We don't even well, our office is our studio. So our studio wasn't prepared for people to come to, and we were just trying to figure it out, like one moment at a time, like researching, figuring it out, recording. And Ryan has been a part of that journey the whole time. I think it was around episode 30 something. I was like, man, when we're going to get you on the show. And we decided that we were going to make this episode, the episode at the 1 year anniversary, that we would have him on the show. You're going to hear more of his story. I think, Ryan has listened to every episode. He's help us work with Kelly to create the graphics, and like just has been a big part of all episodes that come through here. And today we get to learn a little bit more about him and his story. One thing I'm really excited about is that, even though he and I talk multiple times a week, sometimes for longer than probably the calendar invite was for, um, there's so many things I didn't know about him as well. And so continually, this work continues to open up deeper conversations. And one thing I think Brian, because he knows me pretty well, because he's heard my story and me telling my story a lot of times, he asked for something at the beginning of this podcast that I wasn't actually prepared for. He said, let's see if you can find words you have not used before. Man, oh man. I mean, I've drawn like hundreds of masks. So drawing the picture wasn't necessarily the issue. It was like, what words have I not used before, or that I've just rarely ever used? And like as I was about to start writing, I felt myself going into pattern of like just kind of similar words. And this one was a deep conversation. And so I'm really thankful that he asked me to go there. I'm glad that we got to have this conversation. Um, and I got to share part of my story that I haven't talked much about. So, in true taking off the mask form, Ryan and I get a chance to be in this conversation and take off our mask. And you may hear like somewhere in the episode, I like jump into work mode because when I'm talking to him, we're mostly talking about work. So I'm like, I find myself catch myself from like planning for the next episode as opposed to like, wait a minute, we're supposed to be just having a dialogue, and that's part of my patterns, right? My patterns of hard work and working hard and getting stuff done. And at one point I almost forgot we were in a podcast conversation, not really interview. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. We are excited about year 2 of the podcast. I have we've been talking about some ideas of things we want to do and explore. And as the school year is kicking off, we know that young people and definitely our young men in our communities are going back to school. We're going to ask you to help us by reaching out to some young men in your community who you feel have a story they may want to share. Um, we don't know what it's going to look like. We believe the face to face are going to be really meaningful and powerful this year. And so we just invite you to reach out to us. If you're not following or subscribing to the podcast, please do that. If you watch it on YouTube, please share it with someone. It's the best way for someone else to be able to see this content that you're seeing. And as we grow this, not only this channel, but also we grow this movement of masks and the Million Mask movement, I want you to know that some really exciting things are coming up really soon. So stay tuned, stay connected. And I hope that today, as you listen to this 1 year anniversary episode, um, you will continue thinking of people in your life who you really don't know very well. You may see them all the time, talk to them all the time, but you realize that you don't even know who they really are. Maybe you don't care, and that's okay too. But for the people you say you care about, for the people you truly have a heart for that you love, I invite you to just find ways of having deeper conversations that go beyond what you see on the outside. That's what this work is all about. And we hope that you enjoy today's episode. We look forward to seeing you in the next episodes. as we move into year 2 of the Taking Off the Mask podcast. Thank you for being here with us. Please enjoy. Okay. All right, man. Well, oh my gosh, this is wild. This is wild. Okay, well, here we are, Ryan. Welcome, welcome to this episode, the 1-year anniversary, 50th episode. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you, man. I'm excited to have this conversation. So let's. I'll thank you later before we leave here, but let's jump in. I'm glad you've been on the journey with us, and thank you for being a part of this this experience. Not only today, but in all the episodes you've been behind the scenes, kind of helping to bring this together to the world. And when I was thinking about Breno the other day, when he didn't reply with his Instagram, I was like, this man. Uh, and I wanted to just give him a shout out for being on the first one, even before it was called, even before it had a full name, before I had any kind of designs, before it was anything. It was just me having a conversation with this young man from Brazil, and then when I told you that we were gonna kick it off, I said, are you able? Are you willing to be a part of it? You say yes. So thank you for being a part of it. And as a guest, since you're a guest, even though you're deeply integrated to the team, uh, who do you want to go first?
Man, I would say you go first. You go first. Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is the 50th episode, and I've made not only the 50 masks for these episodes, but I've made hundreds of masks before. And you asked me to pick some new words, so this is some new words. And yeah, it, it was like feels like feeling this thing all over again with just that prompt. So
Yeah.
that's the mask,
Yeah.
and here are the words. And I think I'm spelling them wrong because I don't have I haven't written these before. But so
Yeah.
ambitious,
Yeah.
determined, and smart. And I think the ambitious. There's this audio that I listened to once by Jim Rohn called "The Power of Ambition" or something, and I remember uh, him like that word just hearing it over and over again about ambition, and I I think growing up, I've always had like a lot of ambition. I think I don't usually use that word. I say hardworking a lot of times, but I really want to achieve. And I have to go back and I dance back and forth between like I'm gonna achieve great things, and then that feeling like who do you think you are, right? Like,
Yeah.
so as much as I have the ambition, I also there's a lot of doubt. But let me stay on the front. The things I let people see. I don't.
Yeah.
I think people probably see more of the doubt than they do of the ambition. Although I'm really trying to show that I'm ambitious. And I don't think they see the oh, wow, this is interesting to even talk about.
Yeah.
I don't know that they see the doubt. I talk about the doubt a lot because I'm always in these real heartfelt conversations about where I think I should be at this time. So I feel like I show people that I'm ambitious. People who know how hard I've been working forever forward, they would say, this guy's ambitious. um, determined. Like when we don't get a grant, okay, let's keep moving. When a client backs out on a deal, okay, let's keep moving. When I don't know how we're gonna keep it moving in a pandemic, we're gonna keep
Yeah.
it moving. Like I'm just determined not to quit. Um, and smart, I think, was the hardest one to write
Yeah.
because I think that I think I'm pretty intelligent. I just don't talk about it. I purposely not go into my workshops trying to prove how smart I am to people. Even though
Yeah.
I'm a thinker, like I'm always thinking about stuff. I'm always trying to like analyze, break apart, research, learn. Um, but when I say what things I gladly let people see, I'm glad when people see it,
Yeah.
and so maybe I try and show it, but I don't know that I don't think that it's harder when I write it. I'm thinking I'm glad when people see it, although I'm not trying to be like, let me tell you how smart I am, like I
Yeah.
just, but I'm glad that people do see it. Um, yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's an interesting
It's
one. So
it's weird. I feel like there's different types of smart that people acknowledge, and some people acknowledge. I feel like engineering your engineering background is like conventional smart, conventional intelligence that a lot more people you would see them recognize that in you. But I don't know. Is it like switching over to emotional intelligence and working with youth and leading an organization? Do you feel like people don't see that the intelligence as much anymore?
I felt it right away when I first left engineering, like because
Yeah,
I had the difference in feelings. I had the difference between, oh, when I tell you I'm an engineer, I can see the look on your face. Like I read a lot of energy with people. Like I'm like, you can read people and they're like, oh
yeah,
wow, you're an
yeah,
engineer, wow. I remember the feeling, and I remember the feeling like 6 months later when I tell somebody, oh, I'm a teacher, and they're like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
right. I mean, it was almost night and day in terms of how that felt, and I think part of me just felt like when I was becoming a teacher, not really caring what other people thought, but I had a feeling that that wasn't enough. I
yeah,
felt like, um, do I care what other people think? Yes and no, right? Like
yeah,
I know what it feels like to have people think that you're doing something really important and meaningful, and I know what it feels like people say, "Oh, good. Oh, cool. Very
yeah,
nice. How
yeah. Well, I
how
feel like
how how noble of you."
yeah, I've like I guess I should actually introduce myself too before I go in front of the mass, because for those who don't know me, like I was a teacher too. You knew that about me, and I experienced those same exact conversations also. And yeah, I guess I think part of me definitely wanted to like compensate for that and kind of just like show uh, that that teaching is by choice. It's not that like, oh, I couldn't do anything else, so I just ended up doing this, like, which is sad. It's like hard to show. It's hard to get earn people's respect for like how hard it is to run a classroom. And so then I feel like I end up kind of trying to flex
Yeah.
my knowledge about other subjects, about like culture or arts or film or things like that. And then it's like, yeah. Um, so I feel that big time. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's almost even the side of like I'm trying to think of how many times I said to people, "Oh, I was an engineer and now I'm a
Yeah.
teacher." I think
Yeah.
in some audiences, I would I would I would flip it like that. I remember when I went to go when I worked in a public school first, and then I went to go work at this private school.
Yeah.
And I remember they having a little meet and greet when I first got there, and this guy at this private school in Marin, he walked over to me and he was like, "Oh, so how did they find you?" Kind of like I had been found off the side of the street somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, and I could feel his energy. I could feel his judgment. He
Yeah.
had he was, you know, I mean, I'm trying to think how much. So he was a white guy, and
Yeah.
he had a bow
Yeah.
tie. He was like
Yeah.
had a suit on with a bow tie, and I could just feel through his energy that he was in judgment mode, right? And now
Yeah.
he the words he said you wouldn't be able to parse them, but
Hmm.
words are only a little bit, right? The words are just what.
Yeah.
Oh, how did they find you? I'm like, how they find me? How they find any teacher? Don't they go to some, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
what do you? But I
yeah,
remember like me feeling like, oh, I need to prove, and so I said, well, actually, and I remember just like throwing down my resume, like
yeah, yeah,
in a way that was like, it didn't. I mean, I had been teaching for 5 years. I'd already started the Ever Forward Club. I had, that stuff had happened, but I
yeah.
felt like, man, I gotta flex on them. I had to flex on them. You know what I'm saying? Oh, actually, I went to
Hmm.
Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. I majored in civil engineering. I built. Here's the big projects I built right around the Bay Area, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
then I was like take that. And that's one of the
yeah,
moments where I felt like I had to prove that I was smart, right? The only reason
yeah,
I got there was, yeah. Anyway, that's
yeah.
wild.
I also feel like
Okay, all right,
I
your
have
turn, man. Your
yeah,
turn. We
yeah,
we we st-
yeah, um, yeah.
say it, say it. You
Well,
also feel what? Say it,
I
say
also
it.
have like a big chip on my shoulder with like private school, like white culture. Like, just another quick background on me. I grew up in San Francisco, and my parents grew up in San Francisco, and they didn't really trust the public school system. And I went to private school, K-8. It was weird. I was like, middle class kid, um, surrounded by like the wealthiest people. It's like the old owner of the Warriors went to school with me. And yeah, I mean, even at that young K-8 age, you feel the pressure of judgment of these elite people who think their shit don't stink and all that. And a play date isn't just a play date; it's like a political alliance between two parents. And I think I still have a chip on my shoulder with that, and I still feel like I need to prove myself. I mean, even after teaching, like you said, you do that. I'm a teacher, but I was an engineer. I still do the like I'm a filmmaker. I don't even really say I'm a filmmaker, but the idea would be I'm a filmmaker and I was a teacher, and then I feel like I have to explain how my teaching career parlayed into this filmmaking career, as if I owe an explanation to someone or anyone. Um, I just yeah. Anyways, front of the mask. um, here's my
Thank you, man. Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you for that.
Here's my drawing. This is me kind of bugging out. 29, Oakland, California. I put inclusive, countercultural, kind of like alternative, I guess you can say, and collected. And so I think starting with collected, I like to like try to appear like unflappable, or try to appear always calm, or try to appear peaceful. I don't know if I necessarily show that, or I think I show that, but people actually see kind of more of my like nervous energy, because I do feel like I kind of have a nervous energy that I try to bottle in and try to feel like everything's fine, everything's going according to plan. Um, yeah, I think some of that is kind of like wanting to seem unfazed, and kind of like that that chip on the shoulder that I talked about with private school and kind of keeping appearances. Um, so that's collected, and I think it's something that I've always. I think by high school I really like owned it. This kind of like calm hippie persona, and I think that kind of goes into that countercultural thing. Like by countercultural, I think like K-8, I was the Asian kid, the middle class kid, amongst all these white people that would argue about whether their parents going to Stanford was better than their parents going to Cal. And I think me sitting there saying like saying and thinking like my parents like didn't even finish city college. It it kind of made me want to always revolt against like the current power structure, and pursue avenues in this world that are different than working at a hedge fund, or going to law school, or becoming an engineer, or things like that. And then in high school, it was kind of opposite. I went to public high school. So first, I was too Asian for the white people. Public high school, I was too white for the Asian people, and so there was always I kind of have enjoyed kind of being a different kind of hybrid person, but I think that kind of has some of its pitfalls when you like fully buy into that identity instead of just kind of embracing what you have in common with people, what you share, as instead thinking about what differentiates you. It's kind of tiring, I guess. And then my last one is inclusive. I I feel like I'm not. I think it's a thing that people really enjoy in me, that I want to make people feel comfortable, want to make people feel included. After listening to your podcast all the time, you always talk about how you smile a lot, and you kind of are working on um, not smiling too much. I smile a ton to make people feel comfortable, and I kind of wonder, like, is it a bad thing? I think what's worse is when you're smiling a lot to make people comfortable, and you're aware of it, and then you're trying to pull it back, and then you're kind of like somewhere in the middle, and then you're not really embracing one side of yourself or the other side of yourself. If you're a person who smiles, just smile. And, and at times I feel like I'm self-conscious about like trying, like, oh, I'm in a group setting, this person hasn't gotten to say something in a while, and I want to make them feel included, and then um, and then you're kind of like walking the line to with being like calculated about feeling included, but also like being someone who's like emotionally sensitive, and that being something that people appreciate in you. So yeah. Yeah, I feel like my mask is very loaded after listening
Wow.
to a year's worth of podcasts, but yeah.
And not only listening, but like listening, but also being a part of it and picking pieces apart. And like
Yeah,
you did more, right? Even it's a deeper part. It's like, imagine when you're helping with the notes, and you're like, oh, that thought, oh, that one, right? Like, I think, man,
yeah,
and the smiling one that just got me when you just said it right now, because I think about that in between space. I remember being in some places where I was at some kind of party or some
yeah,
dinner thing or something, and I remember just feeling like my cheeks were hurting,
yeah.
right? Because I'm trying to,
Hmm.
I'm not thinking I'm not trying to be inauthentic. I mean, to
Hmm.
smile feels good to me, but then at
Yeah,
some points I'm just like, goodness gracious, can I now stop? Like, what
yeah,
happens if I
yeah.
just stop smiling right here? And I'm clear that my natural resting face looks like I'm upset.
Hmm.
I mean, it just doesn't look pleasant, you know? Like, it's oh, and I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, "Okay, I guess I gotta keep the smile up." I've already created the comfort with it. And so, but now my
Hmm.
cheeks are hurting, and now I'm like in that place of like, I just wanna just
Yeah.
I just wanna just close my eyes and just rest for a minute, you know?
Yeah.
But, man, yeah,
Genuine
yeah,
versus
yeah. Wow,
forced,
wow. The
Yeah.
smile.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like that one picture, I don't think I've shown it to you yet. As a picture, I think I posted one of them, where a photographer, he's here from the Bay Area. He was like, "Okay, I'm gonna take a picture of you," and I sat down in the chair, and I was like, And he's like, I want you just not to smile. And I was like, I looked at him like, like,
Yeah.
how do you do that? How do you just camera comes
Mhm.
out? My mom was always like, smile for the camera, right? So it's like you just always put it on. I remember I got a family picture. We were arguing right before the picture, like
Yeah.
like I was I was enraged about something, and we got to the picture, and my mom was like, "You better put a smile on your face. I'm
Yeah.
about to pay for these pictures. You better have a." And I remember every time I look at that picture, I'm like, I was not happy. Like I
Yeah.
put a smile on. I'm good at putting that on, and yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, I just put a note here for smile because I'm gonna pull up that image because
Mhm.
because I really like the image that I have of me just sitting there in the chair, just looking at the camera.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
man, I
Just
remember when I
being.
posted one and some person just being.
Yeah.
I really like it, and I'm also scared to post it. Like I'm scared to put it as a profile pic because I'm like people are gonna be like, "Why are you angry?"
Yeah.
How
I.
funny that is
Yeah.
that I noticed it.
I think of it as like, if I had a picture like that, people might think like, "Who do you think you are? You know, you think you're like some model or something that is,
Mm,
posing on GQ kind of thing." Um, and I think, I mean, that's
yeah.
like some of the skill that I appreciate in actors. Um, not being someone who acts, but someone who's worked with actors, just people who are comfortable being in their own skin and being in the skin of the character and just fully committing to the character and not kind of being halfway in, halfway out, or kind of being slightly embarrassed and diffusing the situation. You're just like, yeah, I'm just gonna be, you know, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, something that's coming up. I mean, like
Mm.
since you have that understanding about the smiling thing, how how have you experienced other people or making friends? Right? If you're kind of like in this, I'm gonna be countercultural. I'm gonna be, but I'm also want to be inclusive. Like,
Hmm.
have you experienced the other side of the smile
Mm.
where other people noticed it too?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think people definitely have noticed it. Even one memory is like middle school. I think it was like really like embarrassment. Like when I feel like a smile for me is a good way to like diffuse embarrassment. So I just remember I had this really cool shirt, and I loved the basketball player Kevin Garnett when I was a kid, and I had this shirt, and it had this big Kevin Garnett head on it, and then they also put these fake like diamond earrings on his ears, and I just thought it was so cool and it was so different. And then I wear it to like a school dance, and I'm not ready for people yet to comment on it, whether they're appreciating it or like making a funny observation. I'm just like not ready for any of that attention. And then I just have this big smile, and then someone pointed it out, like, why are you smiling so much this entire time? And I think it was just the most extreme smile that I can remember. Um, and yeah, I think other times, kind of like that Jokari window idea that people see things about you that you don't even
Mm,
realize they see about you. I think people see how, well,
mm,
yeah, how much I smile to diffuse a situation, even when it's a sad moment. If I need to share something sad, I might smile, because I'm not ready to like be someone that like is in his feelings and like asking for your sympathy or attention. So even if it's something sad, I might smile and be like, "Oh, I don't need everybody to like ask how I'm doing and like give me a bunch of care or whatever." Um, and then another is, I think one thing was also just like being like too accommodating. I think, um, sometimes I don't realize like things that I do that are way too accommodating, and then people point that out. Even like even when I like disagree about like how good or bad a song is. You know, I might completely disagree with you about this song, but I'll still like try to like, if you have a differing opinion, I'll still kind of like repeat your opinion and kind of still make you feel like I hear your opinion, when really I'm pretty sure people don't really care about that all that much. But yeah, I think we're going towards the back of the mask here for sure.
Well, let's take a breath, man. I'll let you do that first, and I'll get some
Yeah.
water too. Because yeah, now we're about to go. We've been.
Yeah. I think it's,
Oh wow.
oh, you know, one other thing. It's definitely students, when I would be kind of giving, you know, directive feedback or direction towards students. I feel like I was frustrated. I would smile,
Mm.
and then the students are always the one that points stuff out about you that you don't realize you're doing.
Mm.
Yeah, that was
They're
fun.
relentless, huh? They're relentless, aren't they? Right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
They're. Oh man, yeah, yeah. They love pointing things out. I have yeah. That's a we'll get into. We're gonna have one. We're gonna have one of those conversations soon
Yeah.
about teachers. We probably should do a teacher episode about how the massive teachers show up in our work and our
Mm-hmm.
conversation in the work of teaching, right? Maybe it's an idea we do soon. Is like the okay, you got me. I'm coming up with ideas while we're having a show.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna just say
Yeah.
teachers and okay. Here we go. Back of mask. Here we go.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Okay. And I'm putting some question marks on these. Let me just
Mm-hmm.
show it before I start
Mm-hmm.
changing stuff. All right. Here it
Mm.
goes. Wanting kids, legacy, and am I good enough?
Yeah.
And I think since 2015 when we started doing these workshops, I may have written about kids once, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Legacy, am I good enough? Maybe once or twice, but very rare. The reason only reason I wrote the question was about wanting kids is because I grew up being a father, being the man of the house, having a responsibility, and I ask myself that question a lot sometimes. I know that I don't want the responsibility. You know what I mean? Like I think the wanting kids part and the legacy part are probably connected because it's like how do you oh wow, this is just coming up. I can feel this already.
Mm-hmm.
um oh man. All right.
Yeah.
I think it's like I think deep down, like I've always wanted to be a father. I thought I would be a good father. I didn't have one, so I can think of all the things I would want to do with like my child, right? And I think as I put that energy into the mentoring work, right? I put that energy into the mentoring work.
Yeah.
When I raised two of my godsons, I put the energy into helping raise them. Um, and I think but they disappear, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe they don't disappear. They just they go off and they have their own life, right? So they
Yeah.
don't owe me anything necessarily, right? Like not that you and your kids owe you anything, but it's like I
Yeah.
imagine if you were a good parent, they would stay connected, right?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Um
Yeah.
okay. I'm
Yeah.
coming. I'm gonna get it back together. I'm gonna get it together. It's okay. It's part of
Mm.
man. I didn't plan this, but this is what is happening. This is who we.
Yeah.
Um, I think that. So then I was trying to only recently have I got connected back to the Branch family, right? And so when I think about the Branch family, like that's in the last 8 years, 10 years. So like there was the original eight brothers and sisters. My grandfather was one of them, Delta Branch Senior. He had my grandfather had two sons, Delta Branch Junior and my uncle Johnny. My father died before I was born, and then Uncle Johnny had his kids. So my dad had two kids, me and my brother.
Yeah.
My brother battles his own issues in life, and he has one son. So I'm like,
Mm.
from if I think about the family tree, and you can look at the family tree. There's some of the my great uncles who had like 10, 15, 20 kids. So their tree looks like this bushy, amazing things, right? And their
Yeah.
kids had kids and kids and kids. And the leg where I'm on, um, it goes it goes my father and his brother, and then it goes off my father, it goes me and my brother.
Yeah.
My brother has one son, and I don't have any, right?
Yeah.
So when I
Mm.
so part of me feels like, okay, so then what happens? Like the end of that tree stops right there. Like
Yeah.
and so I think it like I don't talk about it because I really
Yeah.
feel it. Like I really
Yeah.
feel like where does like I imagine like people who are building a legacy, who are building, they build family and they build this structure and they will continue to live out beyond them. What happens when I die, right? So
Mm.
it stops right there, right? It stops. Like,
Mm.
and I think I only started thinking about this when I really met the Branch family. I didn't even before
Mm.
2012, my grandmother had never let me meet the Branch family. So I didn't
Yeah.
have the visual of like legacy and people and family and like, I just knew me and my brother, and I knew my cousins here in Oakland. And
Yeah.
I don't, it made it more real. It made it more real when I realized that my family tree is bigger than what I originally thought, and that I'm not showing up as a person who plays a role in built in the longevity of that family tree. So that's what that's what
Yeah.
that's what is really present. And then I think the last one I put there, wow, this is all wow powerful, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Um I wrote, am I good enough? And this dream, this organizational dream. I gotta hold on a second. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
gotta change
Definitely.
this. I'm gonna be
Yeah.
able to talk. Hold on. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, as I
Yeah.
think about this activity, and I think about as many times I've made this, most times if I'm in presentation mode, my 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 feeling is I got to keep it together,
Yeah.
and I presented this hundreds of times, so I can't break down in a workshop. I can let myself tear a little bit, but I can't break down. I can't do this in a workshop. Like
Yeah.
that's too much, right? That's so yeah, I think I rarely ever go too deep on the mask because I'm usually in facilitator mode, and I have
Yeah.
to like put something that's real and true, but something that's not gonna
Hmm.
totally
Yeah.
unleash, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you told me to think about things I have not written before, it just it opened those up. And so
Yeah.
um I think when it gets to am I good enough, I just sometimes am I get in my own way. I think I get afraid. I get like you're posting too much, don't post, blah blah blah. I do all that stuff, and I'm
Hmm.
actually ready to stop that. I'm actually ready to stop that. And I think I'm not sure what it's going to take to really officially stop that. Maybe hire somebody to just manage my social media so that
Yeah.
stuff will just go, and I'm not blocking stuff because I know. Anyway, all that to say, um, but I'm also excited about the journey because I'm clear about a lot of where it comes from, and I think I have been for so long like ignoring the 8-year-old boy in me who needed to be cared about, who needed to be heard, who needed to be seen, and
Mm.
I shut him off, and I shut him down, and I turned into the man who would like and I think only over the last year has this awakening of this story been like a new awakening in my own life, and so
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
It's,
man. Thank you. Thank you, man.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop there.
Yeah. It does feel like it's a very like visceral experience, kind of like a world perspective changing experience, like redefining legacy, redefining, because I'm sure, like, I mean, every teacher's heard this about, like, I mean, I've heard this too, like, oh, your legacy is all the different students that you've impacted. And I'm sure it's like tenfold or 100-fold for you as it is for me. But sometimes, like, you just don't want to hear that. And yeah, it's tough. Yeah, that's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm glad you let that all out. Like, I didn't, yeah, it's something like you should just be allowed to let out and not have the person on the other end try to like coach you through it or reason you through it. Sometimes it just needs to be let out. Yeah.
Yeah, for real, for real. Hoo-wee. Thank you, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would not have I've written if like thank you. I mean, I really appreciate you for that because actually I wouldn't have wrote those um
Hmm.
if I probably was went in autopilot and right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And to just really think about them and like, what is it I'm not really wanting to write? What is it that I don't really want to say? What is it I
Yeah.
don't kind of want to say, but I know I should and I could and I so those are the journey, man. It's part of the journey. So I appreciate
Yeah.
you, man.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate you. I'm gonna do the back of my mask. I'm gonna let my dog in my room real quick because he's
Okay.
kind of whining a little bit.
Yeah.
So here's my back of my mask. Um, I put opinionated, regretful, and embarrassment. Um, I feel like all three of these words, I was thinking about this, like have something to do with boundaries and how I set my boundaries. Um, I think specifically regretful. I think there are times where let people, I'm too accommodating and I let people, walk over me and I don't want that to happen. And then it does happen and then I have this like regret afterwards. Um, I think one thing specifically that's that's kind of just been on the front of my mind, like leading up to this recording, is occasionally like stuff about you know assault or like being violated or um, being taken advantage of has come up on the podcast. And um, yeah, I just had like a very like someone, I mean, I was older, I was in college, but someone was like my best friend, and but at the same time, it was just a very like um like unhealthy relationship, um, like unbalanced relationship, and I was able to set that boundary, but I think I regret just how long it took for me to do that. Um, I think part of that was, wanting to be this kind of like inclusive and um, social justice minded person who wants to, empathize with someone else's background and struggles and mental health, but then kind of allowing that to kind of, you know, encroach upon how I stand up for myself and what boundaries I have. Um, and yeah, I mean, opinionated is another thing that kind of comes with boundaries too, like not standing up for your opinions. I feel like that's how you um, establish who you are and what you represent. And um, I think I share my opinions, but then I back off of them by trying to empathize with the other opinion too often. Um, and yeah, there are times where I remember getting called out on that on things that like are like pretty trivial things, like talking about like which uniforms are cool. Like I couldn't
Mhm.
even just like say, oh, I think this uniform is way better than that uniform, and I couldn't leave it at that. I had to say like, but I see where you're coming from with this X, Y, and Z, and then like just kind of a lighthearted conversation, and then someone pointed that out, and then someone calls you on that, and then all of a sudden some conversation that probably would have been forgotten is something I remember from like 9 years ago. Like I get like one another teacher thing is that like humans remember negative feedback like 5 times more often than positive feedback, and like thing that negative feedback just like drilled into my head after hearing that. And then with embarrassment, I think embarrassment kind of goes hand in hand with collected, which is on the front of the mask, where I try not to show when I'm embarrassed, um, or I'm embarrassed about choices I've made. Um, but I think like I'm still kind of like finding that dance with like mature embarrassment and like the types of ways where you can you know stand up in your embarrassment and own it, and form deeper connections with people by doing that, by you know making yourself more vulnerable and making them feel your authenticity. um, yeah, I think more might come up with embarrassment later, but that's where I'm at right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, like the taking advantage of in people. Like I really realized that, like, I mean, I was thinking about like middle school. I was thinking about like after middle school. Like, I forgot where. I think I answered this question on the card game the other day. So a story just kind of resurfaced where um a guy in middle school who I really wanted to be friends with, and I think Um, I took a lot of crap from from people because I wanted to fit in the circle group and whatever. And I remember after high school, I mean, I'm a college student, and this person needed help to go visit their mother out of town. And I was like, well, and they didn't have a credit cards, but I had a credit card. I mean, I was a college student, so I had like 5 credit cards,
Yeah.
way too many. And they asked me to help, rent this car so we could drive to Missouri. Said, "You come with us. We're going on a road trip. We're going to go to Missouri." And the car, Missouri weather in December is different than California weather. So this is a California car, and when it got into Missouri, it was like, hey, I don't work in this kind of weather, and the car just stopped. Right, literally, the car
Yeah.
stopped working, and we were like, what the heck? So literally, the car died. We called the rental place. They're like, you weren't supposed to leave California. I'm like, what do you mean you're supposed to leave California? We told the person we were going to Missouri. They're like,
Mm.
this is a California rental only. I'm like, where? In the fine print. And it was there. I mean, I felt stupid, but
Yeah.
I felt bad. But I'm also like, and I only got the basic insurance, right? So, but not only because I'm in an insurance situation, but because I left the state, I voided the contract basically, and they charged maxed out my card. Like all they could get was like, whatever, $5,000. They maxed it out.
Ooh, yeah.
And literally, we were stranded there. They weren't going to help us. They were like, "It's your fault." Blah blah blah. We'll send somebody to come pick up the car, but you're. And I was like,
Yeah.
man. And so anyway, long story short, I mean, I'm only telling the story because the dude just left me hanging. Like, didn't try and pay me back. Like, just disappeared. And I was like, what the heck, Ashanti? Like, you really like. And it
Yeah.
was just like one of the moments where like, you're an adult. Like, what do you do? I'm gonna sue somebody. I'm gonna take them to small claims court. I'm gonna blah blah blah. And I just was like, that's me. It's on me. It's on me for allowing this to happen, and for, I mean, what can you do when somebody just
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
dishonorable, is dishonest, and doesn't keep their word? You just can't do really anything about it. So, but yeah, I think those moments where I didn't really want to tell anybody because I felt embarrassed that I had, first of all, that I allowed it to
Yeah.
happen, that I let it happen, that I participated in something like that happening. And so, yeah, thank you for sharing that. And it just, I mean, literally, as that story has come back twice in the last week. So maybe
Yeah.
it's meaning I need to write that story out. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I
I,
guess
I,
it's
I
like
appreciate that.
you're sometimes like you rationalize decisions, at least from my perspective. I rationalize
Hmm.
decisions to myself, and you know, tell myself that they're based in some principle that I follow, but really,
Hmm. Yeah.
there's a more uncomfortable decision that I should have made in that moment. Like
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
a boundary I should have set in that moment, and but like in your mind, we can kind of tell our own stories to ourselves all we want, and
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, but really,
Yeah.
I I saw this
Mm.
documentary recently, and it was talking about how this one scientist was studying how humans make decisions, and a lot of times, in our brain is like a mass of chemicals and chaos that are kind of just reacting emotionally to however you're feeling and whatever you're comfortable feeling. Um, and then we try to make sense of it afterwards. We make a decision, and then
Hmm.
we start telling ourselves our own story afterwards that somehow justifies, like, choices that I made um, that like, yeah, I need to confront more and work on, um, and heal. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
And heal. That's the word. That's the word. To let it heal is one thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder. I mean, imagine like the analogy, if you put a band-aid on something or you wrap it up, it's gonna keep the moisture inside, and it's not gonna really heal. I mean, the bandage is like usually to keep it protected from external stuff from getting worse, right? But the healing
Yeah.
is you need the air, right? And sometimes when
Mm.
we cover up the things, when we don't deal with them or talk about them, they don't get better. They just kind of wait. They're like, okay, well, if you get this bandage off, I can start healing. Right now, I'm just staying moist under here and probably creating a different kind of culture under there that probably is not. It could be getting worse technically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when you expose it, you got to see the ugliness of it, right? You got to see it. Like you got to it's like all different discolored, even no matter what tone
Mm-hmm.
of skin, like it's discolored because it's been covered up for so long and you're like, "Whoa, that looks ugly. I don't want to see that."
Yeah.
And you may be
And
tempted to cover it up again but
yeah,
to
certain
scab needs
things.
it needs
Yeah.
oxygen.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Things you do, certain things you do as a result of something that happened, like it may look completely different. It's like almost like 4 or 5 steps
Mm,
away from what the original prompt or what the original cause was if you just let it sit for so long.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we've seen that, man. I think, I think we've seen that in terms of like all the guests who've come on, right? Whether
Hmm.
they're from the young age, right? 13, 14, our last two guests, or they're like, like my mentor, Sean Dove, who is like older, right? Who recalls a story of him being 9 and what he never dealt with then that he's now having to deal with now. Like I, I I think so many times that it's been people sharing their story that's kind of opened up this idea that, oh yeah, Shanti, oh yeah.
Hmm.
And I think that I don't know why. Well, I don't know. Maybe I do know why, but I think recently I was thinking about like why it's so hard for me to kind of try and write this book. Right? I'm not shy of talking necessarily, but why is it so hard for
Yeah.
me to write this book? Well, when I get in front of the computer, I'm just like I'm left to my own thoughts, and my thoughts are like all over the place. But if I'm sitting on the phone with you, like you and I are sometimes having talks, I'm like, dude, I should have recorded that. That was, and I don't even know what I say after 10 minutes. I'm like, I just said something, right? And I think I don't know who I heard it from. I don't know if it was a podcast or someone where it was like, I think I get more inspiration through conversation. I think
Mm.
I think my flow happens in connection to people as opposed to just me by myself having a wild idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I'm
And
more, yeah.
knowing knowing that about yourself and being aware of what works and what doesn't, and just kind of, I think, being like able to say, oh, like maybe like just sitting in front of a computer is not me. That's just someone else, and
Mm,
it's nothing
yeah.
against me and my skill set. And I'm gonna leverage what I do best instead of dwell on like
Yeah.
trying to force it one way. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And maybe that's what I'm going to do. Maybe that's what I need to do. Maybe that's the next step if this is as we're moving into this second year and I mean, before I jump into that, because I can feel myself wanting to jumping into that.
yeah,
I
yeah.
want us to close and I mean not close, but I want us to finish. Is there anything else that you want to say, want to share, want to reveal in this, after 50 episodes of being a part of this, or is there anything that you want to ask of me, or anything that feels like would be good as I'm always like looking ahead,
Yeah.
right? So I found myself like already kind of in process mode. I'm like, wait, slow down. We're on a show. We're on a show. What are you doing? Right?
Hmm.
It's not our production meeting. This is but also like, yeah. So let me start there.
I think one thing that kind of leading up to this conversation I struggled with, like I told my wife that I was doing this, and one thing that's always just been like changing or elusive, or something that I didn't think was elusive, it was like answering the question, what do you stand for? And like I feel like I kind of think of myself as someone who like knows what he stands for, but then when she asked it, it just kind of just became so much more intangible than I thought it would be. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, do you think you can kind of answer that question too? 'Cause I kind of settled on right now. I kind of settled on craft. I really respect craft and art, like that. The the idea that there is like that Earth is designed so specifically that we can even live on it. That we're the perfect distance from the sun and everything's
Mm.
crafted a certain way. I kind of want to like respect that the rules of the craft and breaking rules of the craft in film. I guess that's kind of what I stand for. But I kind of always used to think that you have to stand for something more than that. You know, you have to stand for, you know, social justice or Black Lives Matter or like
Mhm.
major things. But sometimes, like, I don't know, it just felt good to kind of like simplify
Yeah.
it for myself. Yeah, I don't know. Do you know how you would
I
answer
mean,
that?
I mean, it's a beautiful question. Is it?
Yeah,
I think what I stand for. I mean, I definitely stand for justice and respect and
yeah,
freedom. Um, I stand for the ability to speak your mind, even though sometimes I don't. I mean, I
yeah,
stand for living in a place where you can feel free of worry that the people who are supposed to be keeping the peace are the people bringing the pain and the sadness and fear. And um I
yeah,
stand for my my wellness and well-being, like self-care. I stand for that. I stand for I, yeah, I think. I mean, I have lots of thoughts that I think that I stand for. I think I know what I stand for when I feel myself get frustrated and angry about things. You know, like I think that's how I
yeah,
define what I stand for. Like when I see if I scroll through social media and I'm like, nope, I'm not watching that. I'm not watching nobody else get shot and killed and murdered. I'm not watching nobody get attacked. I'm not like I'll be like today I can't handle it. Maybe every once in a while I'll take a little dive in to look at some of the horrible news that happens in our world because I don't want to be miseducated. I don't want to be out of the loop. But I have a certain level of tolerance. I have a low level of tolerance to see anybody else murdered in
yeah,
cold blood, right? And I think that I was talking to someone the other day, and I was like, "Look, I've watched growing up. I remember from the Terminator, even before that, but I'd say Terminator is one movie I remember like, when I'm really young. Like I don't know how many people died in Terminator. Lots of them. I remember
mm,
Commando. I remember I remember Arnold Schwarzenegger dropping a dude off of the roof of a parking garage or something, right?
hmm,
Like I've watched crazy things, you know? But there's something to be said about like watching it when even your body may not your eyes may not know that it's fake, but you kind of know it's fake to then watching it for real.
yeah,
There's something to be said, and I know that my level of tolerance. I can watch a movie where you know things are exploding and blowing up and whatever, and you're just like, oh wow, 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 wow. And I watch one person get beat down by the police, and my body goes into like a level of like discomfort that is almost
yeah,
bewildering, right? And so I think I stand. I'm clear about some of the times when I stand for some of those things. I think I wish I think those are things I stand against, right? And then I think
yeah,
really being clear about what are the things I stand for. Um and my phone has excuse me, my phone has
yeah,
lots of videos where I made videos about what I stood for, and then I hold them back. I'm like, people don't really care what I think. So
yeah,
even though
yeah,
I'm clear about things I stand for, and I could probably have, lots of videos of my words, man, I wonder how to do that, you know? How do I
yeah,
stand for something more? And so I'm really working on that. I'm really working on that. So
yeah,
Uh, yeah, beautiful question. Beautiful question. Um,
yeah. That was why, yeah, because I just feel like I need to stand up more. That's
mm,
what kind of hit me after all the build up and lead up to this conversation. Um, and
yeah,
just, need to stand up more and then also just need to figure out really what it is I'm solid on, you know. But,
yeah,
so, yeah, yeah,
yeah. Well, I as I think about like what is my position on certain things, like, right? Like, I think like when a man on this show says something really deeply moving, like I'm taking it. What do I stand for? I stand for letting him either have that space. And how do I
Yeah,
like what I have a dance to play, right? I'm like, oh, I really want to ask a deeper question, but I'm like, how much is too much,
yeah,
right? In this already an exposing, opening up that back of that mask, right? And so, yeah, like when I think about those kind of things, what I stand for, like I stand for creating a space. I stand for having a society where men don't have to worry about whether by speaking your truth that people would
hmm,
not honor you as how you identify as a man, right? And I think
yeah,
yeah, so I think that's
yeah. Listening,
a
I think,
lot of listening.
yeah,
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 yeah, yeah. I
yeah.
was in an argument. No, I will say argument. I'll use the word argument, but he and I were having going back and forth. Me and Sam, one of the Social Emotional Leadership Academy young men. We were going back and forth, right, about a TikTok post, right? Now, I don't claim to know nothing about TikTok. But every time, but the three things I do know is because I've asked people who have like big followings, right? And so I was giving him feedback, and he was like, "No, I don't think that's gonna work," right?
Mm,
And we kept going back and forth, and I'm like, "Sam, look, I'm not claiming that I know everything, but even these three things I think I know, I don't really know. No, I just heard them from someone who knows. But if you're going from your own opinion and you're not going to go from research, then we're not making a good decision." And we were going back and forth. He was like, "Well, and I've been having discussions with young people for what 17
yeah,
years, even before, right?" But he was like, "Well, I think this conversation is a waste of time," right? And I'm like, "Well, no, it's not a waste of time. We can have a difference of opinion and still keep discussing it until we get to a place of like, how do we want to move forward?" Right. And I think that what oftentimes happens is in our communities, we don't discuss. We don't have people we can discuss a difference of opinion with. It's either
mm,
I'm right, you're wrong, therefore, okay, well, then we're not going to talk anymore, as opposed to being able to like have the dissonance in our own system to say, I don't like what this person is saying, but it doesn't mean that they are wrong. It just means that I don't agree. I may think they're wrong, they may be wrong, but if that means that I don't listen to anybody who thinks different than me, I don't build a muscle of a resistance, of resilience to say, I can have a conversation with somebody who thinks different than me. I mean, in our social media world, we don't have to listen to anybody who doesn't think like us
yeah,
because we can just scroll past it. We can algorithm tells us, oh, here's the things that say and things that you like.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I think sometimes it's almost that thing of how do we, and so we had a really good conversation about it. I said, listen, I'm not judging you, but I am saying like, if we're not gonna listen to each other, like, and I think the conversation, the part of the reason I mentioned it is that I think oftentimes in this work, when I'm like when I'm working with a young person or we're talking to another man and we hit that level of discomfort, like the question is how quickly do you abort the conversation, right? Like he was
hmm,
willing to just abort the conversation, right? He was gonna abort. I said, no, slow down. Why do we run from the conversation? Why do I and I think that there's a dance oftentimes. And so anyway, I say that just to say, I'm really thankful for the journey that we've got to be on here. And I think I still want to make sure I leave room if there's anything else you wanted to say, but I just want to appreciate you. Let me do that right now. So
yeah,
um because I think we've had lots of conversations, like lots of things that, like that I've noticed, and then you said you would tell me something. I'm like, well, what about this or what about that? And to be able to have this dialogue with you that I can just say, all right, let me just say it in the best way I can say it right now, right? Because I think that sometimes I know that I have my lens is, my lens is seeing it
yeah,
like
yeah,
this, and sometimes I don't see other lenses as well, and that's why I think I've enjoyed this year so much is I've been able to connect with you and to to have you on this team. So I just want to appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you too. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, yeah, difficult conversations, fun conversations, um, disagreements, agreements. Uh, yeah, I think I've grown a lot through this process and learned a lot about myself and just gained more respect for what you do with all the youth and all the, I mean, youth, educators, adults, children, adolescents, all um, and yeah, I mean, I, yeah, I think it was a big risk like 2 years ago to try to start my own video production unit, and I'm just so thankful. Like it couldn't have worked out better, and I couldn't have learned more. Um, and I really appreciate you for that. Yeah.
Right on. Well, I'm glad we met. I'm glad we met at that Create the Space event. And when I told that story, one of those stories for the first time, I was like,
Yeah.
"What did you just do? What did you just do? What happened, Shanti?" And it was that what I call it. Somebody said it the other day. It was called vulnerability hangover. You're like, holy
Yeah.
what is, and I think I think I called you a couple of days. I'm like, is that thing going live? Is that thing won't be going live? Will it? It's gonna. You, you lost the footage, right? I'm sure you lost the footage, right? All the footage is gone, right? Because
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god, and it was one of the moments, right? But I'm so thankful for it and for the journey that we get to go on now because we're about to, we're it's picking up some steam. I think it's picking up some steam, and I think
Yeah.
there's some opportunities that are coming up for us that are gonna be transformative and are gonna help more people, more men, more young men, more families, more communities, more women who get to learn from men telling their story about what things we don't get to talk about, like more people in general. I think
Mhm.
who knows what's to come. I have no idea fully, for all those out there, but I'm excited about continue to have these conversations with men of all ages. We're gonna have a man from India on the show coming up soon, and another man from Mexico on the show pretty soon. Not another man. I think it'll be our first man who's actually lives in Mexico on the show.
Mm.
Um, so I'm super excited about that, and maybe maybe we even take a trip there and do the podcast on live. Like I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
maybe we get creative in this next season and see what we can do to tell these stories and continue using, you know, uh, our tools here with Zencaster and Zoom, but also being able to tell these stories in more amazing ways. So,
Yeah.
anything else you want to say before we wrap it up here, brother?
I think that's it. I could do the usual plug at the end that every guest does.
Please
I have
do. You
a
got
I
to.
have a
You of course you do.
website. Yeah. I have a website
No,
that
no,
has
own
my
it, own it, own it, own it, own it.
yeah,
Start over, start over.
yeah.
Take it. Like this
Yeah.
is you. This is you.
So what I do is, beyond Ashanti's podcast, I work with a lot of nonprofit groups that want to get their message out, and I create uh, little films or little videos that allow them to share their essence and help people be more aware of all the great work they do. I kind of grew up and fell in love with film through documentary film, and from there I've kind of grown and fallen in love with learning the narrative form, the scripted form. And so if I'm not like quote working for money, I'm creating short films and experimenting with the um, scripted format, writing screenplays, things like that. I did just finally complete a short film, and I've been sending it to festivals, and as far as I've heard, it is going to be in one festival. And I'm still waiting for all the other submissions I've given. So that's off to a good start so far. And yeah, you can see my work at my name, Ryan Louie portfolio.wordpress.com. And my Instagram is Ryan Louie, RYNLOUIE. There it is.
All right.
Yeah.
It's going to be in the show notes, folks. It's going to be in the show notes. You're going to be able to find them. And like I said, this podcast is a team effort, and we're so thankful for Ryan for being a part of this with us. And I am thankful for him being here with me. And thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of this journey with us. You know, we are excited about what's to come, and we look forward to even more amazing guests from around the world talking about these masks. And we invite you to continue being part of this movement. You can make your mask at 100kmasks.com. And we look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thank you, everybody. Stay tuned for even more amazingness as we round out this summer and the school year starts. So, and I think we're going to be working on a film. Year 2. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Taking Off the Mask podcast is produced by Ryan Louie. Editing, videography is also by Ryan Louie. Graphics by Kelly Wong. And a special thanks to the team at Ever Forward, Vanessa Cortez and Kevin Romero. And I'd like to thank everyone who's been a part of the creation of this podcast. As we hit this 1-year anniversary, we hope that everyone who's been a part knows that they're a part of the Taking Off the Mask experience. And we look forward to you being a part of it as well. If you liked what you heard today, please like, subscribe, and share. And we look forward to us continuing to offer conversations that matter. Take care. See you soon.